He started James Jackson instead of Clinton Portis. And in one particular game, he's a panic attack guy, Butch Davis. He called a panicked timeout at the end of the first quarter, thinking it was the end of the half. And he lost a fourth down argument with Ryan Clement, where Butch wanted to kick it, and Ryan Clement just basically went out there and lined the offense up, and I think he got the fourth down, but Butch Davis just looked like a fool on the sidelines. Now, whatever, 15 years later, Butch is the experienced coach, and he handed Manny his ass. That flopping and all that, the defense dropping back and basically taking away every play that worked against Louisville, that's vintage Butch Davis. Yeah. Like, he just so outsmarted Manny, it wasn't even funny. So the only thing, I didn't have anything personally against Manny or a defensive coordinator. It's just such a tough place to learn on the job because the stakes are so high. You just can't fly under the radar for a year and figure it out.
So what's your outlook on Manny? I mean, you kind of just compared him to Butch, and what you're saying definitely makes sense. I mean, but Butch ended up kind of leaving here as a decorated coach. Do you see that possibility for Manny, or what are you feeling there?
Man, it was just such a different landscape, 20 years ago. When did Butch leave?
2000.
2000. So 20 years ago, it was just such a different landscape. Miami only had like maybe a half dozen powerhouse teams to really worry about, and now they have to worry about 25 of them, including 3 more schools in the state of Florida that recruit here. And the whole thing basically, going back to, I heard Rose's show, and he's all about the sophisticated passing game and a quarterback that can run and throw and all this other stuff. And I'm not against any of that. I'm not against the spread or any of these other things. I think Miami should be able to just line up and play fundamental football and beat most of these teams. They're not going to beat Clemson. They're not going to beat a few other teams. But the rest of the teams on the schedule, Miami should be able to run the ball. And the reason they can't is because of poor recruiting. And if you can't recruit at Miami, then Miami's Vanderbilt or Duke. There's no advantage to being in the South Florida area if you can't get the best kids that are here.
I mean, you're right. You're 100% spot on. And we've really made a string of bad hires that have, I mean, look at our offensive line depth, or I was just speaking about it right before we had you on, but our cornerback depth, I mean, that comes from recruiting. We're going to have to take a true freshman safety, Avonte Williams, and play him out of position to cover because we didn't recruit the cornerback position very well.
Recruiting cornerback is tough. The way you can negate that is with pass rush.
Yeah.
So they have that.
But I mean, what kind of blue chip program has to play a true freshman out of position because they got caught with their pants down?
Yeah, horrible recruiting. It's not all Manny's fault. He wasn't expected to fix it in 1 year, but the recruiting thing is unbelievable. I understand, I kid them a lot and everything, that we couldn't get the Bosa boys. Like, that was a huge loss, and they were never coming here anyway. Those 2 kids are kind of jerks and don't fit the whole Miami mold. But there's other kids leaving here. Yeah. And one thing I've noticed about Miami since the Nevin Shapiro scandal is Miami takes 0 risks with recruits.
Yeah.
It's a team full of nerds. And I hate to be mean like that, but every team that's really good has a couple of wild cards on it. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be a mass murderer. It doesn't have to be University of Florida with 55 arrests or whatever the number is. But you have to have some kids with a little different type of motor. Yeah. And to do that, you have to take risks. And so far, Miami is unwilling to take risks.
I completely agree with you, Duck. Let me ask you this. What do you think of this Ed Reed hire? Do you think it'll make any difference or what?
Well, like I asked, I don't follow everything as close as you guys do. I listen to a little sports radio or anything. Is he wearing dress pants every day, or is he wearing those coaching shorts?
Well, unfortunately, it's going to be dress pants, metaphorically speaking. It's
right. Dress pants for Ed because he dresses like a rock star. I get that. But it can't hurt. You know what I mean? It can't hurt. But if he's in it in an administrative role or whatever, I mean, maybe it'll get a recruit 1 a year until they figure out what his position is and what he's going to actually do. I don't see Ed being long-term here. They're probably like a 2 or 3 year project. And it can't get worse. I mean, like 3 or 4 years ago when we first lost to Duke, I wouldn't stop on that. And people were like, dude, you're just taking it too far. You got to calm down. It's just one loss. And I was like, yeah, it's one loss, but it's a harbinger of things to come. When you lose to a program like that, and it's not a fluke, any team can lose. You have to look at the way they lost on the field. And the way we lost to Duke and everything, I was like, wow, we just don't have an advantage on the roster anymore. Where Miami could just throw Duke around the field and still turn the ball over a couple times and win by 30. Those days are over.
Yeah, I mean, it's despicable, it's embarrassing, it's pathetic. And then you follow it up by losing to Duke for the second straight year, losing to FIU. It was a disgusting year, and there weren't too many of us who really wanted to express how pissed off we were at the program, but there's no need to sugarcoat it. And so, are we going to see you at any games at Hard Rock Stadium this year?
I'm probably done going to games. I don't know. I might go to a smaller game. I definitely won't go to one. No more FSU games for me. I've been to a lot. I've seen a lot of games. That stadium isn't really my favorite. I'm so spoiled having grown up going to the Orange Bowl every Saturday that it's tough for me to go to Hard Rock. The last time I went was, I think we were playing FAMU, and we were late, and I forget what it was. It was probably 40 or 50 to park, and I tried to scalp tickets, but there were so many police, you couldn't scalp tickets, and then there was a line at Will Call selling tickets for whatever face value is on them, which is pretty high. And while we were debating on whether to buy tickets, Jacory threw 3 touchdowns, and basically the game was over in the first quarter. So me and my buddies were like, oh, we're just getting out of here. Like, it's not even worth it at this point.
Yeah.
One other thing, in defense of Manny, the games he did lose this year, he lost to North Carolina. That's Mac Brown. That's 30 years of head coaching experience?
Yeah.
He lost to who else? He lost to Duke, that David Cutcliffe.
Yeah.
He has a lot of experience. Skip Holtz has a lot of experience. My buddy Jeff, my fishing partner, played down here at St. Thomas and went to UConn and actually played for Skip Holtz.
Yeah. Well, let's see, who else did he lose to? It would be what's Florida's dude, the guy that we turned down twice?
Dan Mullen.
Dan Mullen. Yeah. His name was drawing a blank.
So some of the losses, like 4 of the losses, it was about 100 years of experience to 1.
Yeah.
And when the team's not that good to begin with, they're just going to have, crushing defeats like that.
And we got locker room problems. I mean, Manny has tried to tell us about the locker room problems, but I mean, I feel like he can only say so much from a PR standpoint. But I mean, maybe they're just way worse than any of us think. Maybe this locker room was just horrible this last season.
He did that to himself. If everybody knew that kids on the team were partying before the game, you bench those kids and you come out and lose 100-0. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on him. I get it. He probably started some kids that he shouldn't have started. He probably took some kids back on the team that probably shouldn't have been back on the team. But those are rookie coaching mistakes. I remember Butch did the same thing. He threw Santana Moss off the team for a fight early on, very early on. And we were all like, oh, wow, there goes Santana Moss. And then it came out that Santana was breaking up the fight. And then Butch backtracked and put him back on the team. These coaches, they're under so much pressure, and their decision-making, these guys aren't geniuses. You know what I mean? Butch Davis is not a smart human being. He's a great football coach, but it doesn't take a super high IQ or advanced levels of thinking to be a football coach. You just kind of have to know how to line up.
Yeah. No, that makes sense, man. You're dropping truth bombs, and I think a lot of people don't want to hear them, but,
They don't want to hear them. These are adults that paint their faces on Saturday mornings, go out and put up pop-up tents and chug tequila and grown men wearing costume jewelry, turnover chains, and
Sorry,
a
Doug,
lot.
you got me at that mode, man.
A lot of the guys that don't like me or criticize me, they're cheerleaders.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're still cheering even though the other team's scoring. Kind of like, that big defensive tackle was doing that dance on the sideline. They're not thinking through the whole situation. They're like, I'm a fan, and anything that's critical against the program, I'm going to take personally. So I'm blocked by, a lot of people and that's the beautiful thing about Twitter. You follow who you want, and if you don't want to follow somebody, you don't. And there's a lot of people that block me because they don't want to hear that. They want to hear that next year we're going to go 12-0 and, face Bama or Clemson, and we're going to beat them by 40. But that's not reality.
Not going to happen.
It's not.
With all due respect, Doug, I hope you're wrong, but I'm not gonna say that you are until it's true. So
2020 would be so great if everybody ganged up on me and told me how wrong I was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If everyone was like, "Yeah, idiot, you said that we're gonna do this, blah blah blah," I would take it. I hope that happens.
Yeah.
All right. So before we wrap up here, we talked a little bit before this. You've been very involved in what's going on in Fort Lauderdale, trying to, spread awareness about the, I'll let you talk about it, but go ahead and tell us about the sewer situation in Fort Lauderdale.
Well, right now it's a Fort Lauderdale problem, but it's happening over the entire state, and it's happened to Miami too. It's just happening to Fort Lauderdale at disaster levels. Since December, we've had 9 major sewage breaks, which has pumped 211 million gallons worth of raw sewage into the river system here, which basically nuked and killed everything. And that was a decision that they made to do that. When the pipe broke, they're not going to let it flood the houses. I understand that. They're not going to let it flood the neighborhoods. So what they did was they got pumps, and they made the decision like, we're going to pump it into the river. Well, other cities and other places around the world have better systems set up where they're able to at least filter it before they pump it. Like it goes into another truck that gets some of the filtering out of it. And it's such a bad situation here that, Fort Lauderdale is the sport fishing capital of the world. It's also the yachting capital of the world. And everyone down here lives on the water, and it's all about boats, and it's disgusting. It smells like a Jiffy John on the water. They've got crews out scooping up dead fish and turds with nets. So the rich people, like where Nick Saban lived, and other people in the rich part of Fort Lauderdale don't have to see it or smell it. And we've just been putting pressure on the local city down here. And I filmed all of it. I'm a filmmaker. Yeah. So I'm in the process of doing like a documentary on it, not solely just on the sewage breaks, but on Fort Lauderdale in general and how it's changed from, the 50s and 60s and 70s when your parents spring breaked here and the way it is now because of development and crumbling infrastructure. Like that main sewage pipe is a 7-mile long sewage pipe that should have been replaced 30 years ago. They raised the money for it. They had it, and they voted to spend the money on something else because it was like, I just hope it doesn't break on my watch. Jeez. And it's just terrible.
Well, growing up in South Florida, like you said, you grow up on the water. I grew up just down the road in Hollywood, but I was always boating. All my friends had boats, grew up fishing and everything. And so, anything that we could do, I know that we're out here on the West Coast, but anything that we can do to help on social media, just let us know, man. And because that sucks. That's just a shame to hear, man.
It sucks. And thankfully it made national news earlier in the week. I've been pressuring all the reporters and everything down here and fighting with CNN and Fox. And finally NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt showed it. It was only like a minute and 15 seconds, but it showed it. And people, relatives of mine and stuff that I don't really talk to were like, wow, we just saw you guys on the news. Like, how bad is it down there? And you're like, man, if you go and swimming in the water, you're going to die. You're going to get sick.
Jeez. It's heartbreaking, man. That sucks.
Sucks. So we definitely need the hurricanes to improve and improve drastically to lift our spirits here. It's not going to get fixed anytime soon. It's probably like a 10 or 20 year process of replacing the lines.